Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining today. I'm thrilled to be with you to discuss 5 lessons retail and travel brands should carry into post-COVID marketing. I'm Cailin Fisher. I am a group director at Booyah Advertising out of Denver, Colorado, and I'm excited to speak with you all today and then do a Q&A afterwards. So let's get going. So diving right in, by the end of 2022, total digital time per day is now on track to surpass 8 hours, which is an hour more per day than where it was in 2019 and is the biggest increase we've seen since 2012. So as individuals are spending more time at home and more time on those different devices, we're absolutely seeing digital time pick up and continue to see this trend as we head into 2021. So it's more important than ever that we're in front of those individuals where they are. And we see that in the impact that COVID has had on ad revenues across different mediums of advertising. So as you can see here, in the first half of 2020, both digital and linear mediums took a hit as there was growing uncertainty, rightfully so. But in the second half of the year, we really see digital media begin to recover, the growth rate of 10%, whereas linear media is still lagging behind. So that brings the total of 2020 to actually growth for digital media, where we're still seeing that recovery in some of those linear mediums. So absolutely a time to have digital top of mind. And we're going to talk about some of the ways that we've adjusted in 2020 and as we head into 2021 due to these trends. So our agenda today, we're going to start by speaking to travel impacts, then we'll move into retail, and then we'll recap it with what it means for our future and what are those 5 key takeaways and lessons that we want to keep top of mind as we head into 2021. Kicking it off with travel impacts, we first want to talk about 2020 and recap some of the things that we learned and some of the trends and insights that we saw that will likely carry into 2021. No surprise here, as travelers began to adjust to the impacts of COVID, we saw behavior trend towards more domestic bookings, much less international travel, a lot of drive market bookings and travel happening in the space, shorter times booking out, and a desire for flexibility and cleanliness, of course. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. We also saw 63% fewer passengers through TSA than last year. This is obviously an absolutely huge hit for the air travel industry and the travel industry as a whole, as people were moving around the country and out of country less so than ever before. So we'll talk about the way that this impacted some of the trends and ways that we adjusted our media strategy throughout the year. Interestingly enough, we saw weekend trips were the fastest to rebound. So after an unprecedented dip in March and April, when we were in the early days of COVID, Google reported a surge in searches related to things like weekend getaways, day trips, weekend trips, and vacations near me. So it's important to keep this top of mind and adding this language into creative and ad copy to capitalize on that consumer intent that we're seeing pick up and continue to pick up as we head into 2021. So moving forward, on the flip side of that, we are seeing a trend that travelers are staying for longer than ever before. So at the beginning of COVID, in that March and April timeframe, we saw 1 to 7 day trips decrease to only 30%, and a huge increase in that 8+ day travel time period. As we moved a little bit further into summer, fall, winter, we did see 1 to 7 days pick up a little bit and take up a good share of that percentage, but we are still seeing it higher than pre-COVID, taking up about 41% of the total length of trips. So really important to keep in mind that we're messaging those longer stays, extended stays, and letting individuals know that our property is open for that type of opportunity. Also important to note, while people are optimistic about the future, time spent on travel sites began to rise considerably throughout May. In June, though, as several states saw the negative impacts of reopening, that visitation started to trend down again. So since then, consumers have been reluctant to search for travel too far in advance. Instead, they've been opting to search and book within sort of this 3-week window, which, as we know from trends we've seen in the past, is much shorter window booking out than what we have seen historically. So again, really important to note as we see openings and reservation opportunities for individuals that we'd like booked, we can message those still within that 3-week window and assume that people are comfortable booking within that window. So another thing to note is that priorities have shifted when consumers are booking travel. Current and future messaging should prioritize thinking about safety, flexibility, and empathy. Not surprisingly, safety and cleanliness comes in number one here as travelers concern, according to eMarketer. So travelers want to be sure that they aren't risking an increase in COVID cases, but also making sure that the properties are adhering to the most recent cleaning and safety protocols, and that we're educating them up front and they feel very comfortable booking that stay ahead of time. We're also seeing flexibility trend to become quickly number two here in terms of priority. According to Expedia, more than ever, travelers are hoping for flexibility that allows them to easily change their plans without penalty and receive a full refund credit, even in a short window of time close to their booking. So it's really important to keep flexibility top of mind as safety and cleanliness becomes more of a standard expectation. Now consumers are really trending towards looking for more flexibility in their booking. And then last but not least is empathy. There's a lot of this going around right now, which is great, but travelers are beginning to choose destinations that seem to put visitors' needs above financial gain. So absolutely important to keep this top of mind that people are looking for empathy and flexibility from locations when they are booking travel. Some of our key takeaways in 2020. So 45% decrease in digital travel sales from 2019 was quite a hit, but we did see the percent of travelers climb through summer, hit 38% in October, and then drop back off as COVID cases continued to rise. So it is optimistic to see that when COVID cases did start to go down, we did see that traveler momentum regain really quickly, and people were able to book stays and we're excited to do so. So very optimistic that the travel industry will rebound as soon as we see COVID cases continue to trend down. And then we also are seeing that there's confusion around the growing restrictions preventing travel or different things that are in place that consumers need to do once they're at a location, once they're leaving a location. So anything that we can do to help educate the consumers up front to make them feel very confident that they have all of the information that they might need and that there will be no surprises once they get there. At Booyah, we decided to move forward with this phased approach for our travel clients. This was done at the beginning of COVID, so it was meant to be flexible and directional, but we of course wanted to have a plan in place and some different backup plans just in case things started to go in a less favorable direction. So we started off phase one in early summer, which really focused on building brand awareness and encouraging engagement with those that were still comfortable with travel. There was a subsegment of individuals that have been traveling since the beginning of COVID. So we wanted to make sure that we were getting in front of those individuals that were still looking for travel opportunities, and then working to educate those who were a little bit more tentative, felt like they needed a little bit more education and understanding what the properties were doing to adhere to the new procedures and protocols. From there, we moved into phase two, which was in later summer. We really wanted to drive consideration here and build more demand as things started to open up a little bit more. We had an opportunity for hitting a broader user base here by leveraging our learnings from phase one. What messaging did consumers want to hear about? What things did they feel very educated about from our ad copy and messaging? So you're able to leverage that here in phase two and get in front of a wider subset of individuals. From there, we moved into phase three, which was fall, winter, and beyond, which is really messaging and preparing for the new normal. We're very aware that the things that have changed in 2020 will likely carry into 2021 to a certain extent and beyond. So we really want to get in front of consumers, have a testing plan to continue messaging regulations, and what people feel most comfortable with as things continue to change and evolve into 2021. What does that look like in practice? Here's one of our clients that did a phenomenal job quickly adapting and adjusting to the new protocols, the new normal, and then working alongside our creative team to build out some messaging and creative ad units that really spoke to this with the consumers. So starting off early spring, late spring, was really leaning into this health and safety messaging. Here we want to discuss the updated cleaning protocols, what they can expect upon arrival, having peace of mind with travel as things were really fresh and people were very uncertain in what travel might look like and wanted that reassurance. From there, we moved into more aspirational getaway messaging. This is when people started to get, a little restless at home and wanted a getaway, especially being in the great outdoors and having some activities and being socially distanced. So we really wanted to lean in here into taking that aspirational getaway, perhaps a skiing trip, perhaps just a more generalized way of getting outside and dreaming about that getaway. And then last but not least, of course, is the new normal. So as we wrapped up 2020 and headed into 2021, it's important that we're messaging consumers, letting them know we're up to speed, we're making these adjustments, and we understand that they're not going anywhere. So some messaging that we leaned into here was things like skipping the crowd, skipping those lift lines, working remotely. We have leaned into hugely with multiple properties this year, especially as we speak to those extended stay opportunities. Easy travel, this is where we leaned into drive markets, potentially locals rates, really trying to drum up interest with that drive market group. Bring the kids, a lot of homeschooling was going on during this period and may well be in the future. So making sure everybody was aware that it was a kid-friendly environment and opportunity for that. And then last but not least was that longer stay. So again, just leaning into the home away from home and having discount rates and messaging around those longer stay and extended stay opportunities. And we want to talk about brand awareness because there's a great place for brand awareness in the new normal and messaging with COVID. There are still a significant portion of individuals that aren't comfortable traveling, and that's totally okay. But we want to make sure we're getting our message in front of them and letting them know what we have to offer, making them feel comfortable for that time that they are ready to travel and staying top of mind as competition is fiercer than ever with less and less people traveling than before. How did this strategy pan out for us? So here are some snapshots of what we saw on 2 different hotel properties that we manage at Booyah. We saw phenomenal results where we continued to increase spend and revenue followed. We actually saw with hotel property 1 here, they had their record-breaking month of online sales ever this past July. So it really speaks to the messaging strategy we had in place and ensuring that consumers felt very comfortable with the adjustments that were being made and ultimately messaging the correct people that were comfortable with travel to get them in the door. So again, incredibly efficient summer this summer, and as we headed into fall, saw phenomenal results that we were really thrilled with. So to sum it up, what drove success for our clients and what did we see really work? First and foremost, of course, is the cleanliness and safety messaging, especially at the early end of COVID. On all channels, we saw messaging adjustments that spoke to updated protocols and reminded consumers that their safety is a top priority for us, outperformed all else. We also leaned into drive markets and new trends. So knowing air travel was an obstacle for a time and likely will remain an obstacle, we focused investment on drive markets. We updated messaging to speak to those things like locals rates, drive and save, weekend trips, extended stay messaging, all of which drummed up great interest on our end. We also expanded geos based on performance. So there was a period of time we really honed in on our drive markets, but once we were able to move beyond those, we expanded into key markets that we've seen top performing on a national level and really focused on those states first before extending into a fully national campaign that was tailored based on how certain geos were performing. And then last but not least, budget increases and new tactics. So we saw search demand and strong bookings continue throughout 2020, and that performance led us to ultimately increasing budget. We also launched brand awareness, videos, and campaigns, as I mentioned, across our client set, and we worked with our organic team to build out new brand pages. So a lot of adjustments going on to make sure that we were hitting consumers in the right way with the right message that they were looking for. And then of course, leaning in to an extent while others were leaning out was also very successful. So what does that mean for 2021? What's our outlook for the travel space? Here's the 2021 hotel forecast. So the key takeaway here is it is looking up from 2021 or 2020, which is fantastic. But year over year comparisons are still going to be a challenge as we look to recover into 2022. So 34% of adults feel comfortable staying in a hotel, which doesn't sound like much, but it is a huge progress compared to where we were at the beginning of 2020. 53% is the hotel occupancy rate that we're expecting, and 85% of 2019's total room revenue, which is an incredible recovery from where we were at the beginning of 2020. So very optimistic looking into 2021, but still a lot of work to do on that front. We're also seeing that hotel and resort stays are likely to be fueled by the younger generations. So based on the relative risk associated with a lot of the older generations, they're likely to be more cautious as we all resume our travel. So Gen Z and millennial audiences will likely make up the bulk of people initially staying at hotels and resorts during and post-pandemic. So while we don't recommend targeting these demographics exclusively, it is more important than ever to capture their attention of the quick to scroll generation, make sure that our advertising and creative is very thumb-stopping and engaging, and then also to focus on the amenities that are most appealing to them. So again, don't want to just segment out only those amenities, but it's important to make sure that we're including amenities that appeal to various generations and groups of individuals. So the overall traveler sentiment in 2021, of course, optimism is the name of the game, but travelers do have new needs that we should be addressing as brands and properties. So a couple of things to really keep top of mind here that we've seen pop. 80% are looking for rejuvenation. So remind travelers your destination is a place to relax, refresh, and unplug from the stresses of the world. People are really seeking out rejuvenation as their trip away from home during COVID and post-COVID times. And then 50% are looking for reassurance still. So nearly half of Americans feel optimistic about booking trips in 2021, but the other half need reassurance from brands that travel is safe and secure, and that all of those protocols and procedures are being kept top of mind as we head into 2021. Not surprisingly, the vaccine rollout is the main source of optimism for future travelers. New coin term vaxications are on the rise as people prepare travel plans in the hopes of being vaccinated. Be there for travelers as rollouts expand more throughout the spring and summer and throughout the country. The map here on the right shows the doses administered per population across the United States. You can see those states that have heavier rollout are likely to be the first to bulk travel. So something we may want to travel or tailor our targeting to and keep top of mind for messaging in those states in particular in the future. Nearly half of all US travelers say their comfort level for travel is tied to the vaccines in some way. So again, 50% that are impacted directly from the vaccine rollouts, and something that we absolutely want to keep top of mind and keep an eye on as this shifts throughout the country. As I mentioned, feeling optimistic, but 2022 is the true recovery goal here. So travel sales are expected to stay below pre-pandemic levels until then, but we are seeing a phenomenal recovery expected in 2021, as you can see here in the graph on the right. So very excited to see the recovery. Obviously a lot of work to do and a long way to go still, but feeling really optimistic about the way things are going to pick up in 2021. What does that look like throughout the year? Here are some numbers on the consumer comfortability with travel by quarter as we head into 2021. As you can see, 35% comfortable traveling in Q1. That goes up to 50% in Q2 and exceeds 50% to 58 in Q3. So very exciting to see that continue to trend up throughout the year. Of those surveyed, only 11% said hell no to travel in 2021, which is a great number. So we're pleased to see that past Q2, about 50% of people surveyed were comfortable with travel, and we'll intend to lean into that. So moving into retail impacts, obviously an industry that was impacted in a much different way than travel. We saw some retail companies actually outperform historical metrics in 2020 and saw some phenomenal performance as consumer behavior shifted in the space. Although retail was hit with its own challenges, things like being short on inventory, shipping concerns, all sorts of unique challenges that set it apart from the travel space in 2020. So our recap for travel in 2020, we did see, as I mentioned, US e-commerce sales growth in 2020, actually pretty significant growth, which is phenomenal, especially as consumers had more disposable income to have to spend things on. As they moved away from travel, we actually saw a lot of consumers invest that income into goods as we moved into 2021 a little bit further and things became a bit more secure. So very interesting to see retail really pick up, especially in the outdoor space, as consumers were very excited to get outside, pick up new hobbies, to make sure that we were all social distancing. They needed the gear to go along with it. So really great to see this growth in sales in the retail space for 2020. Changes that we saw to the landscape. 82% have changed their shopping behavior habits since COVID-19 started, which is a very significant number. So it's important that we keep top of mind how we're adjusting to those shifts in consumer behavior. And then we saw 4 in 10 consumers are continuously purchasing items online that they would have normally purchased in store. This is something we absolutely expect to continue into 2021 as consumers have very much so gotten comfortable with this new normal of retail shopping and e-com and online experience. We'll want to make sure that we're pivoting to adjust in the way that the consumer is hoping to engage with brands in the future. So it's important for us to think about the growth of our online presence and how we're adjusting our online presence based on consumer behavior shifts. A couple things that stand out. Of course, more online sales are happening than ever before compared to brick and mortar, but we're also seeing a behavior shift for online discovery. More and more consumers are shopping around online, engaging with more brands online that they never had before, exploring new brands, and really just overall being open to new brand discovery. So it's important that we're not only hitting them in that DR moment for that online sale, but also thinking more mid and upper funnel and making sure that we have more engaging ad units and are educating consumers about our brand. We also see an expectation shift from consumers. So they are looking for more engagement with brands and more personalization from brands. Two things that are really important for us to keep top of mind, not only with our online presence and what channels we're supporting in the digital space, but also with how we're tailoring that and personalizing that to the individual to keep their attention and also make sure that they're very engaged with the things that we are putting in front of them, as that is the new expectation. So what does that mean for the outlook in 2021 in the retail space? 51% of US adults say they expect their lives will remain changed after COVID. This is a huge number within the US and something that we'll want to keep very top of mind as we think about the way that we message in 2021 and beyond, knowing that some of these trends and changes are sticking around for the long haul. One of the most important things that we've seen a change to that we expect to keep around is the omni-channel appeal that we've seen consumers really lean into. A few things that that are of note here is buy online, pick up in store. buy online curbside pickup, trunk delivery, and locker pickups. So a few of these are new, a few of them were around before, but have just really gained momentum in 2020. Important to note, anywhere between 15 to 30% of consumers have already used these different various methods of delivery. And then between 38% and 40% are interested in using these. So they're not going away, and it's important to make sure that we're being flexible and adaptable to the consumer and really adjusting to their preferred methods of delivery and pickup. 53% say local products are important to them when deciding where to shop during the past year. So this number has increased, and it's really great to note for those local brands, smaller brands, and small businesses that this is of growing importance, especially to that Gen Z and millennial audience. So something we can definitely consider leaning into in our messaging and ensuring that we're educating consumers about the product and about it being local and everything that goes along with that. We have, though, seen impacts to brand loyalty through the past year, a decrease of 10 points for physical retailers and 5 points for online retailers. Definitely interesting to note, as consumers are spending more of their time online and engaging with new brands, the brand loyalty has decreased. People are more open to trying out new things. It's not such a loyalty to a local brick and mortar store anymore. Things are done online, and that gives people more opportunity to educate themselves and try out new things. So a couple things that this impacts. One is in conquesting and engaging new prospecting audiences. Great opportunity for us to think about our competitive audience and then also just net new audiences that are more apt to try new things as we head into 2021. And then on the flip side of that, it's important that we're keeping our loyal customers engaged and creating a space where we can keep that brand loyalty. This would definitely be done by things like being flexible and adjusting to the new space, offering free shipping, and making sure that the consumer feels like we're doing everything in our power to adjust and adapt to the new normal. A few of these things that have really popped in 2020 and as we head into 2021 are free delivery, special price promotions, and free returns. These are now the top of mind offers for consumers when picking a brand and when driving brand loyalty. Whereas in the past, it's been things like earning points. We really see this shift now to convenience and flexibility, as well as promotions as people shop around. So essential to keep these items top of mind, and want to call out free shipping, especially as it's now become an absolute must and is the expectation for consumers. A lack of free shipping keeps many shoppers from purchasing. We, from this survey, actually see that only 9% of individuals say that they've never decided to avoid buying from an online retailer because of lack of free shipping. So a really small amount there that is not considering free shipping top of mind, and something that we will want to keep around and lean into in 2021 as much as possible. In addition to free shipping, the checkout experience is key. We want to make sure once a consumer gets through the shopping process, add something to cart, we're making that as seamless as possible and knocking down any barriers at that point. 21% of online shoppers decided to abandon their cart because the process was too complicated. So we want to make sure that we're not requiring users to log in or making the shopping cart experience any more complex than necessary. 35% increase in conversion rate for e-commerce websites if they have a good checkout design. This is a huge number of potential conversions missed if we don't have good web design in our checkout experience and ease the customer's path to purchase. And then lastly, 75% cart abandonment for e-commerce websites that load slowly. I want to emphasize this. I think this is a challenge for a lot of brands, especially with being short on dev resources, having competing priorities. We see a lot of websites have slow load speed time, especially on mobile. And it's essential now because Almost 75% of conversions are happening on mobile. So it's equally important that we're checking out our desktop and mobile site speed and ensuring that that's up to par as we shift to this more online world and as consumers are unwilling to wait around and will just abandon cart if we don't have that be a very quick and seamless experience. Then, of course, don't forget about Amazon. 75% say that they have purchased a product on Amazon, and over 75% of individuals now have a Amazon Prime membership. So it's essential that we have a presence on Amazon, not only to have our product available there, knowing that Amazon revenue has just continued to increase exponentially, especially in 2020, but also because consumers more and more are doing their research on Amazon. It's actually one of the top search platforms now. So it's really important that we're there and that we have a strong presence, that our listings are optimized so that consumers can find the information that they're looking for throughout their shopping journey. As a recap, what drove success for our clients on the retail side? Again, a slightly different impact than the travel industry saw, but some things we had to adjust for nonetheless. One of those being flexibility in purchase options. As I mentioned, on all channels, we saw success with messaging adjustments that spoke to the updated options available to consumers, such as free shipping, buy online, pickup in store, afterpay options, free returns. We also saw leaning into online be of huge benefit. Even for retail brands with heavy in-store or retailer focus, we shifted to support those options online more and more than ever before. We found that this really lifted all tides and drove overall growth for the brand. As I mentioned, conquesting and acquisition is top of mind as ever before. So in a time when brand loyalty was overshadowed by convenience, we leaned into conquesting to get in front of users looking for different options or exploring different options that best fit their current situation. Many users purchased with brands that they had never even previously heard of during 2020, and we expect to see that brand exploration continue into 2021. Lastly, budget increases and new platforms similar to the travel space. We made sure to lean in when others were leaning out. When there was some uncertainty, we wanted to get in front of those individuals with our message and capitalize on those lower costs to do so. As I mentioned, many people flocked outdoors for new activities when there were fewer recreational options available. So it was great to really capitalize on that interest and get in front of individuals that were exploring new brands for their new activities. And we did a great job connecting them with the appropriate brand. We also tested new and evolving platforms such as CTV. We saw incredible increases to the amount of time spent on connected devices, as well as time spent with video. So we really wanted to adjust and adapt our messaging to hit consumers where they were and be on those platforms that they were engaging with more than ever before, such as TikTok and things that really picked up in 2020 and something we expect to see as a continued trend in 2021. So in summary, what does this mean for the future of not only digital advertising, but advertising as a whole? What are some of those takeaways that we want to keep top of mind as we head into 2021? Let's recap our 5 lessons to carry forward. The first is diversify. If there's anything we learned in 2020, it's that diversification is the name of the game. It is more important than ever, not only with the impacts of COVID, but other concurrent changes that we're seeing in the space. It's really important that we have a solid media mix, that we're exploring new platforms, and ensuring that we can hit our target audience where they are. Number 2 is to prioritize messaging. Messaging has become more important than ever before. It was already absolutely essential, but now it's so top of mind. There are new ways that consumers want to be messaged and new reasons to buy that they're looking for from brands. It's essential that we lean into those things and communicate with the consumers to reassure them that we have everything that they need. Number 3 is enable flexibility. providing flexibility for our consumer base, including easy cancellation, free returns, various pickup and travel options. It's also important to keep flexibility in mind when it comes to the supply chain and how we can be agile there. I think that was an interesting lesson that we all learned through 2020 was the impacts that the supply chain can have in so many different ways, and making sure that we have flexibility and options there in the future so as to not impact the purchase experience for those individuals. Number 4, prepare for an increasingly online world. Be prepared and proactive when it comes to adjusting to the new online world. Ensure your media mix aligns and be sure to prioritize a strong e-commerce experience for consumers. As we mentioned, a big one of these being no roadblocks in that purchase checkout experience and ensuring that site speed is up to par. Number 5, address each market segment. It's important that you assess your geo strategy and other market segmentation considerations. We don't necessarily mean over-segmenting campaigns or only going after specific geos, but it is important to make sure that there's consideration over how different markets are going to behave and respond differently based on where they're at in 2021. So with that, I thank you all so much for the time today. It was great to spend it with you. I look forward to the Q&A coming directly after this session. Thanks so much.